In the biting chill of a December morning in New York City, Emily Thompson, a compassionate doctor in her mid-30s, vanished without a whisper after driving off from her vibrant clinic in the heart of Manhattan, igniting a mystery that would grip her family, colleagues, and the entire metropolis for more than 2 decades, until a diver's astonishing find upended everything we believed about her fate, exposing a reality far more poignant and tragic than any could have foreseen. Emily wasn't merely a physician. At 34, she had carved out a legacy as one of the city's most empathetic caregivers, her clinic a beacon in the bustling urban sprawl where patients flocked from every corner of the 5 boroughs just to experience her soothing presence, her warm smile melting away the fears of wide-eyed children, and her steadfast confidence earning the unwavering faith of adults, navigating the complexities of illness in a fast-paced world. She poured herself into her work with relentless dedication, often extending her hours well into the evening to offer solace to anxious families, or to double-check on cases that tugged at her heart, refusing to turn away anyone based on their insurance card or wallet's thickness, her peers holding her medical acumen in high regard, but cherishing even more the profound humanity that set her apart in an industry sometimes accused of mechanical detachment. Those who crossed paths with her painted her in unanimous praise, serene, selfless, dependable. She had never once skipped a shift, without prior word, her existence a symphony of routine that rendered the ensuing events all the more jarring and inexplicable. Residing solo in a cozy apartment blocks from the clinic, Emily filled her nights with dives into the latest medical research or phone check-ins with frail seniors unable to venture out her daily rhythm, as reliable as the ceaseless flow of yellow cabs down Broadway. That particular Friday dawned like countless others for Emily. She breezed into the clinic at the crack of dawn, exchanging her signature sunny greeting with Nurse Anna Bird, her agenda brimming with back-to-back slots that she navigated with effortless grace, examining a feverish toddler, reassuring fretful parents with detailed explanations, updating meds for her loyal cadre of elderly regulars who treated her like family. Come mid-afternoon, Emily casually noted she needed to dash out for an emergency house call, scooping up her well-worn medical bag and keys, assuring Anna she'd swing back in under an hour to wrap up the day's documentation. From the window, Anna observed Emily slide into her light blue Ford sedan and merge into the traffic toward the quieter residential pockets, her tone a tad rushed yet otherwise unremarkable. No red flags waving in the crisp air to hint at the storm brewing within. The clinic ticked on, but as twilight appointments trickled in and Emily remained absent, Anna's concern morphed into outright alarm. Emily was the epitome of punctuality, never one to flake on commitments or leave patients in limbo. By shutdown, dread took hold. Anna dialed Emily's apartment line incessantly, met only by the hollow ring, then hustled over rapping on the door until irate neighbors poked their heads out, but silence reigned supreme. That night, Anna reached out to Emily's sole known kin, her aging Aunt Margaret in Chicago, who confessed to no recent contact, a break from Emily's ritual Sunday calls that now screamed anomaly. Margaret hit the road immediately, arriving in the wee hours, and with Anna, they keyed into the apartment for a thorough sweep. Everything screamed normalcy: bed, crisply made wardrobe neatly arrayed, stacks of journals aligned on shelves. Yet an intangible oddity lingered the space, too immaculate, too devoid of lived-in chaos. As though Emily had no plans to reclaim it that evening or any thereafter. Come Saturday's light, with 0 breadcrumbs, Margaret lodged a missing persons report at the local precinct. But the desk officers shrugged it off with practiced nonchalance, noting how grown folks dipped out routinely, likely to resurface after blowing off steam from job stress or life woes. Emily's circle of friends, however, refused to swallow that. They mobilized swiftly, rallying volunteers for grid searches, churning out flyers emblazoned with her beaming portrait to blanket telephone poles, bodega windows, and subway cars. Citywide, the tale catching fire in local rags and escalating to national buzz with headlines like "Vanished Healer," "NYC Doc Disappears Mid-Shift," stirring a deluge of tips from coast to coast. Alleged spots at Grand Central, assertions of her on a bus to Jersey, but each fizzled in the immense haystack of metropolitan anonymity. Detectives, meanwhile, retraced her final hours, homing in on that elusive house call. But the plot thickened oddly. No patient had summoned her, her schedule void of any such notation, all regulars hale and oblivious to emergencies, flipping the script from routine to riddle in the sprawling concrete maze, probing deeper into Emily's world. The veneer of flawlessness splintered, unveiling concealed facets, bank statements, exposed massive cash pulls draining her reserves. Dry, her landlord recalling queries about early lease termination that went unpursued, and most enigmatic, those nocturnal calls with tenants overhearing, rings piercing the quiet from late fall dialogues clipped and whispered across flimsy partitions. Emily tensing when quizzed, deflecting with claims of on-call crises, but her vibe radiating unspoken dread. Her formerly buoyant spirit had dimmed in those closing weeks. Co-workers spotting her distraction, constant clock watches, flinching at every clinic buzzer, subtle cues, now glaring in retrospect, amid the grind of urban healthcare. Emily Thompson's vanishing swiftly ascended to one of New York's premier enigmas, law enforcement broadening the net to upstate retreats, interstate motels, and even international ports, grilling patients, staff, and her scant social ties, all sketching the same archetype, dutiful nurturing utterly unlikely to ghost her calling without rhyme or reason. The light blue Ford loomed as the linchpin with APBs blared statewide for the plates-filling stations, toll plazas, and lot attendants armed with her image and specs, highway patrols, eyeing bridges and tunnels. Yet the sedan appeared to have evaporated alongside its driver, lost in the endless urban sprawl. Primetime specials on networks like ABC kept the flame alive with weekly recaps sustaining public vigilance, clairvoyants dialing in visions of Emily ensnared in diverse locales, but probes bore no fruit. PIs volunteered services, yet walls loomed high. By the next spring, 3 core hypotheses commanded the discourse, one a psychic snap leading her to bolt for reinvention, backers citing the shady calls and quirks. 2, a sinister snare abduction or slaying her habits, priming her for a predator's ploy via bogus summons. 3, the remotest yet insistent self-inflicted end sleuths, musing if the venerated doc masked despair or a harrowing secret propelling her to oblivion. Months morphed to years, sans proof, the saga receding from banners, as the metropolis churned onward, the clinic onboarding a fresh MD, who slowly won over Emily's devotees, Nurse Anna retiring eventually, but eternally pondering her friend's destiny. Aunt Margaret preserved the flat for triple years before boxing, relics her diploma from med school, snapshots of brighter days, keepsakes from appreciative souls, warehousing them, incapable of discard yet averse to perpetual mementos of void. The Ford got scrubbed from theft logs post-7 barren years, her form unfound insurers, invoking wait periods for legal death decrees, her license nullified for duty desertion. Gradually, Emily transitioned from active hunt to archived enigma in cop vaults, an unresolved specter. Yet her yarn endured in murmurs among reminiscers of the gentle healer, who motored off one wintry noon and dissolved, etching a hollow in mended hearts, and a conundrum seeming eternally sealed. In the frantic weeks after Emily Thompson's abrupt disappearance, The NYPD threw everything they had at the case detectives pounding the pavement across Manhattan's bustling streets, scouring grainy footage from the few traffic cameras available in those analog days, knocking on doors in her neighborhood, and interviewing anyone who might have glimpsed her light blue Ford zipping away that winter afternoon. But every promising lead dissolved like snow in the city's relentless grit, leaving a trail of frustration in the vast urban labyrinth where people vanished daily without a trace. The story exploded across the media landscape, splashed on the front pages of the New York Post and Times, dissected on evening news segments by anchors like Walter Cronkite, on CBS, portraying Emily as a saintly figure in white coat, the selfless doctor who healed the forgotten in a city of 8 million. Her patients organizing candlelight vigils in Washington Square Park, sharing tearful anecdotes of how her gentle exams and empathetic ear had pulled them through illnesses and hardships, turning her absence into a communal wound that begged for answers. Investigators zeroed in on her finances, uncovering those hefty cash withdrawals that set alarms ringing, thousands drained from her accounts in staggered amounts over recent months, her savings wiped clean, fueling speculation of blackmail, a secret debt, or perhaps a premeditated getaway from some invisible burden weighing on her soul. Neighbors in her walk-up building stepped forward with eerie recollections of late-night phone rings echoing through thin walls. The calls coming at odd hours from fall into winter. Emily's voice hushed and strained in brief exchanges, ending abruptly. And when a nosy resident inquired, she'd flash a tight smile and wave it off as urgent patient matters. But her fidgety demeanor hinted at something deeper, a crack in the armor of the unflappable healer everyone admired. At the clinic, staff retrospectives revealed overlooked shifts in her behavior. Those final weeks, her once confident stride now hesitant, her focus splintering during consultations, a new ritual of double-checking charts, as if buying time, and those lingering moments with patience. Her hand resting a beat longer on a child's shoulder or an elder's arm, gestures now seen as subconscious farewells in the high-pressure world of inner-city medicine, where burnout lurked like a shadow. The Phantom House call emerged as the investigation's black hole. Police combed her patient roster, dialing every number in her meticulously kept ledger, but no one had beckoned her that day. No crises flared, no follow-ups loomed, transforming what appeared as a dutiful errand into a deliberate ruse that screamed of intent, perhaps to slip away unnoticed or meet a darker fate orchestrated by an unknown hand. As the chill of winter thawed into a rainy spring, the search ballooned beyond the city's confines, alerts flashing to state police in surrounding areas like Pennsylvania and Vermont motels. Along the interstate, checked for her signature, hospitals queried for Jane Doe's. Matching her description, her photo tacked up at truck stops and Amtrak stations, but the influx of tips, a sighting in the Finger Lakes, a woman resembling her at a diner in Albany, crumbled under scrutiny, each a mirage in the endless hunt. Grateful patients, pooling donations from bake sales and fundraisers, hired private investigators who rifled through her apartment again, finding it unnervingly spotless. No suicide note or manifesto, just the faint scent of her perfume lingering like a ghost, as if she'd polished every surface in preparation for an eternal absence. The Ford's plate number was blasted nationwide through law enforcement networks, border patrols on alert at crossings to Canada, but seasons cycled without a ping the car as phantom as its owner in the sprawling American expanse. Public intrigue hit fever pitch, with features on emerging true crime shows, psychics flooding tip lines with visions of Emily in remote cabins or urban underbellies, but detectives sifted through the noise, prioritizing forensic prep for the vehicle, if it ever surfaced, though optimism waned as months stretched into a fruitless year. By then, The theories had crystallized into three dominant narratives, fueling barroom debates and supermarket tabloids. The first painted a portrait of mental collapse. Emily buckling under the ceaseless grind of her vocation, those cryptic calls maybe to a fixer, arranging a new identity in a sleepy Midwestern town. The withdrawn cash, her ticket to anonymity, away from the siren wails and subway rumbles. The second veered into noir territory, envisioning kidnapping or murder, her empathetic routine rendering her vulnerable to a con artist or stalker masquerading as a desperate patient. The invented house call a cunning trap to isolate her in the concrete jungle's undercurrents. The third, uttered in hushed tones, floated suicide, pondering if the idolized physician concealed a profound melancholy, maybe a personal tragedy, or the cumulative toll of witnessing too much suffering. Though reconciling that with her radiant public persona proved agonizing for those who'd known her light. A decade blurred by, the case icing over as resources diverted to fresher crimes, annual pleas on local affiliates, drawing thinner responses, the clinic soldiering on with a replacement doctor who inherited Emily's loyal flock, but hung a framed photo in the lobby as a silent homage, a beacon for the healing she once embodied. Aunt Margaret, her hair graying with grief, clung to the apartment for years before reluctantly packing it up, sealing boxes of medical tomes, faded Polaroids of family holidays, and trinkets from grateful patients, stowing them in storage where they gathered dust like forgotten dreams, her soul unable to discard the remnants, yet tormented by their presence. The Ford faded from active bulletins after exhaustive dead ends, insurance firms invoking presumptive death clauses for payouts, her medical credentials quietly archived by the state board. The machinery of closure grinding forward, even as enigmas persisted in the hearts of the unyielding. Emily's tale receded into the annals of urban legend, resurfacing in occasional podcasts or mystery anthologies. A parable of how even the sturdiest lives could fracture unseen, but it simmered in the subconscious of the city, a spectral echo among skyscrapers poised for the moment. Fate would intervene and dredge up truths long submerged, upending every conjecture about the doctor who vanished into the ether one December day, her absence a riddle that time had etched into New York's enduring lore, awaiting the plunge that would finally illuminate the shadows. Long after Emily Thompson's disappearance had slipped from the headlines into the quiet corners of New York's collective memory. A stunning find in the depths of Lake Algonquin, a tranquil expanse nestled in the rugged Adirondack Mountains, some 300 miles north of Manhattan, jolted the case back to life, forcing investigators and a captivated public to confront a mystery that had gone cold for over 2 decades, its secrets buried beneath murky waters until a diver's chance discovery rewrote the narrative of the beloved doctor's fate. On a sultry summer morning, Tom Sullivan, a seasoned recreational diver and member of a local club that mapped underwater ecosystems, was gliding through the familiar depths of Lake Algonquin, a place he'd explored countless times for its serene beauty, teeming with fish and cloaked in a haze of limited visibility, rarely more than a few feet in the silty gloom. Descending to about 50 feet, his flashlight swept across the lake bed, catching a metallic glint half buried in sediment. And as he brushed away layers of mud accumulated over years, his pulse quickened at the sight of a rusted car wreck, its frame eerily intact, standing upright, as if someone had deliberately parked it on the bottom. Clearing more debris, Tom recognized the distinctive curves of a 1970s Ford sedan, and through the veil of corrosion and algae, he discerned traces of light blue paint, a detail that sent a chill down his spine, his mind racing with the possibility that this was no ordinary junk but a clue to something far more significant. His excitement gave way to unease. This could be a crime scene preserved by the lake's cold embrace. Snapping multiple angles with his underwater camera, he marked the spot with a buoy and surfaced, his hands trembling as he radioed the local sheriff's office, breathlessly recounting his discovery to a dispatcher who initially met his claims with skepticism. But Tom's detailed account and diving credentials prompted swift action, and within hours, police boats encircled the site, their lights cutting through the morning haze, as a specialized dive team prepared to investigate what would soon be hailed as one of New York's most extraordinary underwater recoveries. The divers descended, confirming within minutes that the vehicle was indeed Emily's light blue Ford, its license plate partially legible despite heavy rust, a relic frozen in time since the winter of her disappearance. Detective Frank Russo, now a grizzled veteran, who'd been a rookie on the case all those years ago, was summoned to lead the operation, standing on the deck of a police boat, staring into the water with a mix of disbelief and grim determination, haunted by memories of the fruitless searches that had defined his early career. The lake's remote location making no sense. It was nowhere near Emily's clinic, her apartment, or any route tied to her supposed house call, requiring a deliberate trek through winding rural roads she had no apparent reason to travel. The recovery demanded precision. A marine salvage company experienced in preserving underwater evidence was contracted, and over 3 meticulous days, divers secured cables to the Ford's frame, ensuring no trace evidence was lost. The operation drawing a crowd of locals, retired officers who'd worked the case, and news crews broadcasting live to a nation gripped by the unfolding drama, their cameras capturing every moment as the past was pulled from the depths. When the car finally breached the surface, a collective gasp echoed along the shore. It was a spectral artifact, its windows shattered, or gone aquatic plants, trailing from its frame like mournful garlands, the once vibrant blue now a patchwork of rust and decay, yet its shape unmistakably that of Emily's sedan, transformed by 2 decades underwater into something both familiar and alien. Forensic teams descended, working under portable tents to shield the vehicle from the elements, and what they found inside was as astonishing as it was perplexing. Emily's medical bag rested on the passenger seat, its leather cracked but contents remarkably preserved in the lake's low oxygen environment. Prescription vials, surgical tools, and patient files still legible. A time capsule of her final day. The glove box yielded her car registration, insurance documents, and a small appointment book crammed with names and times. But what was missing proved most significant. There was no trace of Emily herself, no bones, no clothing fragments, no personal items beyond the professional tools, no signs of struggle or violence, as if she'd simply exited the vehicle and walked away into the abyss. Forensic analysis painted a clearer picture. The car hadn't been forced off a cliff or bridge, but had sunk gradually, water seeping through open windows and doors, settling gently into the silt. Its position eerily precise, almost staged, suggesting intentional submersion rather than an accident with plant growth and corrosion patterns, dating it to the winter of Emily's disappearance or shortly after the near-empty gas tank, hinting at a long drive from Manhattan to this remote haven. The engine showed no signs of failure, ruling out mechanical mishap, as the cause and the absence of blood or damage inside dismissed theories of foul play, leaving investigators grappling with the question of why the car was here so far from her life and where Emily herself had gone. Then came a pivotal revelation. Clara Evans, a 73-year-old retiree living in a nearby nursing home, saw the news coverage and contacted authorities, her voice quivering as she shared a memory she'd buried for years, too uncertain to report until now. On the afternoon Emily vanished, Clara, then a park ranger patrolling the lake's trails, had spotted a woman matching her description, standing knee-deep in the icy water, fully clothed in a coat and scarf, staring blankly toward the horizon. An odd sight in the bitter cold that Clara initially chalked up to a quirky hiker or someone disposing of trash. But the image stuck with her, and the televised recovery connected the dots. Placing Emily at Lake Algonquin, mere hours after leaving her clinic, a journey that would have taken deliberate planning and purpose. Her testimony provided the first concrete sighting since that fateful day, but it raised haunting questions. Why had Emily driven 300 miles to this isolated lake, and what happened after she entered the water? Digging into the lake's history added a chilling dimension. Local archives revealed it as a site of multiple unexplained disappearances and suicides, stretching back to the 1950s, with old newspaper clippings recounting tales of strange lights at night, erratic wildlife, and local folklore about cursed waters that drew troubled souls, stories dismissed by police as superstition but undeniable in their pattern, as at least 5 others had vanished near these shores, some leaving cars, but no bodies, much like Emily. The discovery meant to unravel the mystery only deepened it, the absence of her remains fueling speculation, and the lake's eerie reputation amplifying the sense that Emily had chosen this place for reasons known only to her. Its depths hiding the final chapter of her story, forcing those left behind to confront the possibility that the compassionate doctor had orchestrated her exit with a precision that outwitted even the most determined searchers, her legacy now tied to a place as enigmatic as her own hidden struggles. As the recovery of Emily Thompson's Ford from the depths of Lake Algonquin sent shockwaves through New York and beyond, investigators pieced together a narrative that shattered the illusions of her perfect life, revealing a woman who had been silently battling demons while healing others. Her disappearance, not the result of foul play or flight, but a meticulously planned act of despair driven by untreated depression. Armed with the car's contents and Clara Evans's eyewitness account, Detective Frank Russo obtained warrants to delve into Emily's medical records, uncovering a heartbreaking truth: she had been self-diagnosing and self-medicating for severe anxiety and depression, prescribing herself medications in secret to avoid the stigma that could derail her career in a medical field where vulnerability was often seen as weakness. Her personal journals, hidden among her books, detailed months of escalating psychological pain, panic attacks, insomnia, overwhelming hopelessness that she chronicled with clinical detachment, as if analyzing a patient's case rather than her own unraveling mind. Her entries painting a portrait of a high-functioning professional, masking profound suffering behind a facade of compassion. The mysterious phone calls turned out to be consultations with Dr. Harold Katz, a psychiatrist in Chicago specializing in burnout among healthcare workers. Emily had been his patient for 4 months, confiding in late-night sessions where she felt safe discussing her deteriorating mental state without fear of professional repercussions, refusing hospitalization or formal treatment, insisting she could handle it alone. In their last call days before she vanished, Dr. Katz noted she seemed resigned, as if unburdening herself before a final decision, and he planned to follow up only to learn of her disappearance from the news. Bank records once thought to indicate escape or extortion revealed a different pattern: Emily was tying up loose ends. A behavior known in suicide prevention circles as pre-suicide organization, prepaying rent for months ahead, settling all bills, even donating anonymously to charities supporting underprivileged children and elderly patients she cared for. Most telling was a stash of cash hidden in her apartment, enough to cover funeral expenses labeled in a note as final arrangements, suggesting she'd contemplated her end for weeks. If not longer, her actions those of someone preparing for a permanent departure, rather than a new life. Among her belongings, searchers found a sealed envelope addressed to Aunt Margaret, dated just before her disappearance. Its contents, a gut-wrenching confession. Emily admitted to months of depression, feeling like a fraud for healing others, while unable to save herself, her work. The only thing keeping her going until even that became unbearable. Apologizing for the pain her choice would cause, but explaining her plan to end her life in a way that spared loved ones the trauma of finding her body. She chose Lake Algonquin for its depth and isolation, hoping her remains would never surface, her words laced with gratitude for the love she'd received and regret for the sorrow she'd inflict, the letter unsigned and unsealed, perhaps a final hesitation in her resolve. Another letter, discovered later in a drawer, was addressed to her patients, dated the day she vanished, expressing sorrow for abandoning them, thanking them for trusting her with their stories, naming specific elderly regulars, and urging future caregivers to pay special attention to their needs, reminding them that healing comes from within as much as from medicine. A final testament to her deep sense of responsibility, even in her darkest hour. With these revelations, investigators reconstructed her last day after leaving the clinic under the guise of a house call, a fabrication to buy time without immediate alarm. Emily drove straight to the lake, a route she'd likely scouted in prior weeks, parking on the shore, releasing the brakes to let the Ford roll slowly into the water. As a decoy, then wading in fully clothed, her medical knowledge assuring her that the winter chill would induce hypothermia quickly, a relatively painless end. This last act of consideration, sinking the car to draw attention away from her body, explained why exhaustive searches missed her for so long. The lake plunged to over 200 feet, in spots her remains likely carried by currents to the anaerobic depths, where decomposition halts preserved indefinitely. Early searches focused on urban areas and nearby waterways, never imagining she'd travel so far or orchestrate such a deliberate concealment. Though modern sonar might locate her now, authorities opted against further dives, respecting her intent to vanish completely, the lake guarding her secrets as planned. As the case wrapped, another find emerged. Dr. Samuel Chen, a colleague at the clinic, came forward, recalling Emily approaching him weeks prior with hypothetical questions about physician suicide and depression in the field, which he dismissed as academic curiosity, now realizing it was a veiled cry for help in a culture where doctors feared judgment for seeking aid. He blamed himself for missing signs, highlighting how medical professionals often hide struggles to avoid being seen as unfit, sparking a broader conversation about the toxic perfectionism in American healthcare. Emily's story ignited reforms with medical associations, launching programs for mental health support tailored to doctors, confidential counseling hotlines, and mandatory wellness checks in residencies. Her tragedy, exposing the alarming suicide rates among physicians higher than the general population, and leading to policy changes like reduced work hours and anti-burnout initiatives. Aunt Margaret, in her 80s, found forgiveness in understanding, sharing that Emily's parents, long deceased, had battled depression too, suggesting a genetic link, and establishing a scholarship fund in her name for med students studying mental health, turning personal loss into communal good. Former patients like young Sarah Patel, who remembered Emily's candy-stocked pockets during childhood checkups, wrote letters crediting her kindness for inspiring their own careers in nursing or teaching her warmth-shaping lives, even decades later. Nurse Anna Bird broke her silence in interviews, recounting overlooked signs, Emily's early arrivals and late departures to avoid solitude, her increased workload as distraction, her prolonged hugs with kids, and handholds with seniors now seen as silent goodbyes. The lake's reputation shifted. Local authorities installed suicide prevention signs and crisis hotline kiosks, along trails transforming a site of sorrow into one of awareness, with annual vigils combining remembrance with education on depression signs. Detective Russo closed the case ruling suicide due to untreated depression, using it in training for new officers to look beyond obvious clues and consider psychological factors in missing persons cases, his persistence becoming legendary in NYPD lore. Emily's legacy rippled outward. A PBS documentary chronicled her story, interviewing survivors and experts, emphasizing missed warnings and cultural shifts. Research at universities like Columbia examined high-functioning depression in doctors, her journals providing rare insights that informed screening tools and interventions. The clinic became a mental health center, offering free counseling to healthcare workers, her old office, a quiet memorial. Globally, her tale influenced WHO guidelines on physician wellness, inspiring peer support networks and stigma reduction campaigns, saving countless lives through heightened awareness. Unsolved mysteries lingered the exact mechanics of the car's submersion. Her final thoughts in the icy water, but they underscored the limits of investigation into human suffering. A year later, a memorial garden bloomed at NYU Medical Center, with a bench inscribed to Dr. Emily Thompson, who healed with kindness and reminds us to heal ourselves with understanding. Annual gatherings shared stories of her impact, flowers blooming each spring symbolizing renewal. Emily's unintended legacy, sparking a revolution in mental health support, ensured her compassion lived on, turning one woman's silent struggle into a beacon for others, proving that even in tragedy, profound change can emerge, challenging us to see the hidden pains in those who care for us all.